back. Hi, welcome back. Hey, kids. Okay, so we're going to go over the Unforgettables 9 and 10. If you didn't watch the first video yet that had 1 through 8, stop this one, go back to the other video, watch 1 through 8, and then we have 9 through 10. Because I have the free version of Screencastify, and I can only do short videos. That's why. Okay, so let's go to this one. So, using proper sentences, basically, is number 9. No comma splices, fragments, or run-ons. So those are the 3 improper sentences that we're going to be really kind of focusing on because we see them a lot in 7th grade writing and 8th grade writing and 6th grade writing. Comma splice is the one I see so much, and it's a really hard one because you don't notice that it's wrong until you learn it and you practice it and you practice noticing that it's wrong and finding it. So a comma splice is when 2 complete sentences are next to each other with just a comma stuck between them. So when you read it, you don't catch it because it sounds right, but it really should be a period and another sentence. It's like 2 sentences that one should stop and one should start, and instead there's a comma in the middle. In your notes, I want you to write that definition. A comma splice is when 2 complete sentences are next to each other with just a comma stuck between them. If you need to pause to write that down and then start again, do that. A fragment. Fragment is only part of a complete sentence. So a complete sentence would have a subject and predicate, and a fragment only has one of those 2 things, or even less. I want you to write that definition down. Then a run-on is a very long sentence that needs punctuation and has none or doesn't have enough. Just a long sentence can be just a long sentence. As long as it's punctuated well, it can be a really, really long sentence. There's even people that write entire stories in 1 sentence, which I don't find entertaining because, but it's a fun challenge to try to do. But it has to be punctuated correctly. Otherwise, it's a run-on. All right, we're going to go over those 3. Comma splices. Can you tell I was angry that I was seeing so many? So John's seen them. Okay. Putting a comma in between 2 complete sentences, don't do it. Here's an example. The tank's top was ajar, which means left open a little bit. The snake got out through the small opening. Now, if you were to just read that, the tank's top was ajar, the snake got out through the small opening, it doesn't sound like it's wrong, but those are 2 complete sentences with a comma jammed in there. You should end that one sentence and start the next. Or if you really want them to go together as a sentence, add a conjunction. So you could put the tank's top was ajar, comma, and a conjunction. So the snake got out through the small opening. So remember the conjunctions are so, and, but. We have the fanboys that we learned, but a lot of people don't use for or yet. But something that is a word that connects those 2 sentences would be a conjunction. So you can keep your comma as long as you add a conjunction. Or you can make it 2 sentences. The tank's top was ajar. End it, period. Start a new sentence, capital letter. The snake got out through the small opening. So both of those 2 corrections would be right and would be proper and not a comma splice. You just fixed it. All right, a fragment, only part of a complete sentence. Remember that a complete sentence is a complete thought. It has a subject, who is doing the action, and it has a predicate. What did they do? So it'll have who's doing the sentence, usually a noun, and then a verb that says what they're doing. If it doesn't have a subject and a predicate, it's not a complete sentence. So you might have only 1/2 the subject or only 1/2 the predicate. So a subject would be you know who's doing it, but you don't know what, and a predicate would be you only know what it is. So you can't have a sentence that said danced around the yard because you don't know who's doing the dancing, right? And you can't have a sentence that said says Billy and his goat, because you don't know what happened to that. If Billy and his goat danced around the yard, you got a whole sentence, not a fragment. Sorry, I made those up spur of the moment. That's a ridiculous sentence. Sorry about that. A run-on. A run-on is a long sentence that needs punctuation and either doesn't have any or doesn't have enough. Okay, so it's not just a long sentence. Long sentences are fine and sometimes great, but they need the right punctuation. Here's an example of a run-on sentence. When the children said they should eat, Grandma, a woman stuck in her old-timey ways said, "No, wait until dinner time." Okay, I don't know what's happening in that sentence. Are the children going to eat Grandma? Is Grandma a woman stuck in her old-timey, or did a woman who's stuck in her old-timey ways said no? Like, I have no idea what's happening. Look at the sentence. The second one has the punctuation. When the children said they should eat, Grandma, a woman stuck in her old-timey ways, said, "No, wait for dinner time." Then it makes sense. Oh, they're not going to eat Grandma. Another example. Byron loved cake. He loved it so much he would cry if he didn't get it, throwing himself on the floor in a tantrum. Okay, now that one, I can tell what's going on. It's still not correct. It's still a run-on. It doesn't have to be confusing. It's lacking all the punctuation that it needs. So if you look down at the second one, I made those into two sentences, and I highlighted the punctuation. Byron loved cake. Period. End it there. Start a new sentence. He loved it so much he would cry if he didn't get it, comma, throwing himself on the ground in a tantrum. Now you might go, is that a comma splice? No, because throwing himself on the ground in a tantrum, if it was its own sentence, would be a fragment. So it needs another sentence. So it's not two sentences stuck together with a comma. It's an independent clause with a dependent clause stuck on it. You do need the comma. And the period, of course, at the end. We are going to work on all three of those. So we're going to work a lot on comma, splice, fragment, and run-ons. Keeping verb tense consistent. We're going to work a lot on this too. So I'm going to give you just a very little bit. For your notes, just write, add through the whole story or paper. Because if I write on your paper, keep verb tense consistent, and you're not sure what that I mean through the whole paper, you might look for one sentence or something. Keeping verb tense consistent, you have to look at a whole piece of writing to see if that verb tense is consistent through the whole story or paper. So add through the whole story or paper. And then by keeping it consistent, if you start writing in past tense, then you keep writing in past tense. If you start writing in present tense, then you keep writing in present tense. Future tense is also a tense. Now, if you're writing in present tense and you have a flashback, it might go to past tense, and that's when you're kind of an advanced writer. You really probably should keep it all in past tense if this is a confusing thing when you get to writing, or if you have issues with it. Practice just plain old past tense the whole way so you won't get confused. And then you can start playing with when it's okay to go to past tense when you're writing in present tense. Future tense is you don't write a whole lot of whole things in that, but you could throw it into a paper and I'd be like, that's not right. Here are some examples. If the verb is swim, past tense is swam or has swum. Present tense is swim, swims, or swimming, and future is will swim. Okay, so if you are talking about how you swam and you went to a pool and swam there. Anyway, you get the point. We're going to go over this way more than I can just say in a video really quick, also because I'm going to run out of time on the video. So take a look at this. We're going to go over it way more. As long as you have this in your notes, you're good for right now, and that's what we did in class today, so you'd be made up. All right. Good job. I always looked at good job. Okay. I'm going to stop it. You're done. You are done. Okay, bye.